first ever guest here. I'm happy to have with me none other than Barrett Brown. Thank you, Barrett, for joining me. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
Hanging in there. You know, wild times, as we all know.
Oh, yeah.
For you, how has the pandemic been in regards to, obviously wrestling got halted and things like that. But you've made the most of it from what I've seen in regards to, in a lot of ways. Something that really engaged me to reach out to you was the kind of the physical transformation you took from August to October here.
Yeah, man.
Talk about that a little bit and how you kind of made the adjustments during this whole pandemic and what really got you motivated and inspired.
So when it all kind of started around the beginning of April, everything shut down. And so I took the time to try and get bigger. So I got to about 180. And then around that time, I got contacted by New Japan to do a New Japan Strong. And I was like, oh no, I need to drop weight now, like kind of lean down and tone up. So I kept that mentality, and I've been working with actually Alexander Hammerstone. And so
Really?
I've been just like, man, he's got me on this regimen. I've really been dialing in my fitness and diet and everything. So now I've dropped over about 30 pounds, and I feel the best I ever have. I feel more healthy, just more ready for when the world opens back up, man.
Yeah. So talk about that. This might be a selfish aspect of me because I'm like, I don't need to get back in shape a little bit more. What has, and Hammerstone, perfect. Like he's been doing, and he's posted a lot of that stuff too, his training and how he works out all the time. What has kind of been like your diet, and then what's kind of been your training aspect that you have changed since working with him?
So I am fortunate enough that where I live, I actually live in like an old storage building. So this is like a giant office building, but I can open the door and I walk out into a training facility that I actually run.
Oh, wow.
So I work out at least 6 days a week and do at least 40 minutes of cardio every day on top of 5 meals a day, where my only carb source is like morning oatmeal. So it's just like, it's absolutely draining, but the results have been good. And I've kind of been in like a self-isolation period for about the last week and a half, 2 weeks, for something I can't really talk about yet. But it's good that I could kind of isolate, focus on my fitness, really dial that in the last week and a half. And plus it's cool to actually look at somebody else other than like immediate family, because I haven't talked to anyone else outside of them for the last 2 weeks. So this is really cool for me.
Yeah. Hey, good. I'm glad I could be there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's just wild to have that all factor in. So how I kind of wanted to start all this stuff too is just a basic bare bones thing. How did you become a wrestling fan? And we'll just start off with that. How did you become a wrestling fan?
So some of my earliest memories of my childhood was watching old school WCW with my parents on the TV. Like, I think back in the day, they had a mentality of like, oh, WWF is too violent, but we can watch WCW. So I was like the biggest old school Goldberg mark in the world when I was growing up, man. Like, he was the man. And it was just, I was like, man, I could not imagine being that guy walking down that ramp, hearing that crowd, feeling that energy. And it's just that was a fire that never died in me. And I took that into adulthood, and now here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome that you actually said Goldberg, because he was the first wrestler I kind of really ever met as a kid. Was him.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He came. It wasn't the first indie show I was at, but he was in a nearby town that me and my brother went and saw him at a hotel in a town nearby. He was just signing. It was like right before Great American Bash '98. I think he was fighting Conan the next night or something. And dude, it's like Goldberg. The present, and it's the simplicity of him too. In a lot of ways, is just being a badass and just kicking ass and just having a presence in the ring. I think it speaks so much to how, and him still being able to show up today and still get over. It really says something to his star power in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So I spoke. What's your first indie show you ever attended?
First indie show I ever attended was like, okay, so I grew up in a very small town called 7 Points, like an hour south of Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And they had this very small venue, like 2 towns over. And man, we maybe had like 20 paying people there, but to me, this was like WrestleMania. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And eventually, a guy that like their champion at the time ended up opening up a small little wrestling school that no one knew about in Texas. But that's the guy that I went to when I started. But then from him, I went to guys like Killer Tim Brooks, and I went to the Harley Race School where Steve Anthony, who used to run that school, kind of took me under his wing. So from them, it kind of became the road. Like the road became my trainer.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah. Because, I mean, just looking too, I looked at your website that you have, and I think that's a really neat aspect that a lot of wrestlers don't kind of utilize, is you run down a whole bunch of what your previous work is, what you're currently working on, the wrestlers that you've worked with, whether you trained with them or like worked in the ring or in some capacity with them. I thought that was a really neat and good idea to do, actually.
I appreciate that, man. It's so weird to go back and look because I started this when I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
And so looking at the last 11 years almost, it's odd to think that I sometimes forget about some of the names that I've actually wrestled with or have shared the ring with. Like I remember I wrestled with Wolfie D, and I was like, that was the coolest thing ever, but I forgot about it the other day. I was like, yeah, I wrestled Wolfie D. That's so cool, you know?
Yeah. And it'll be really neat too, like once you're like years on or whatever, and you kind of look back at that and you have those ties to some of those legacy stars. I mean, I was looking through and you had like Rock and Roll Express, you had Bob Orton, you had Jim Duggan. It's just like a whole who's who kind of thing. It's pretty neat.
Right.
Pretty neat. Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about too in regards to certain aspects of your training and stuff. You did mention on the site Lance Hoyt or Archer a couple times. Talk about your relationship with him and how he's helped you throughout your career so far.
Man, Lance has been just, I hate to use the term of like a wrestling grandfather or like a wrestling dad or anything like that, but he has helped me immensely as if he were a parental figure. He is actually, before, we've kept this on the down low, but before he's done some stuff with AEW, he's come out and done some private stuff with me and just kind of used me for conditioning and worked out with me and stuff like that. But on top of that, just the knowledge I get from him just by picking his brain and seeing how he does certain things, just these little small things that you wouldn't think about, but they mean so much more. You can gain 2 years of knowledge just in one session with that dude. He is unbelievable. He's done an immense amount for me.
Oh man, yeah, I bet. Like I was engaged by him probably even when he was in what was it? Like WWE when he was like short hair, everything like that. I remember all that stuff.
The Vance Archer day.
Vance Archer, that's right. The Vance Archer day. Another person you brought up that I thought was wow, it kind of blew my mind was Mattbourne. Talk about that a little bit.
So Mattbourne was really, he was kind of the first quote unquote name that would sit me down in the back and talk to me about the little things that I would do right or wrong in the ring. Mm-hmm. Because actually, when I lived at my parents' house, I was wrestling. When I started wrestling, I was living with my parents. Mm-hmm. And the first like hometown hero venue that I would wrestle at, I could walk to from their house. And Mattbourne was there. And I remember after this match I had, he brought me to the back. He sat me down and talked to me for like an hour just about these little bitty things. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. I was like, this guy took the time out of his day to talk to me about what I could do better. Like, so he must see something in me. And I've been on shows with him, like in Arkansas and stuff like that. And he's always just gravitated toward me. And on top of it, my mom is terrified of clowns. So he always knows to go after her if she's in the crowd. So he was really the first legend that I connected with. And so obviously his passing messed with me quite a bit, but it just eternally grateful from that.
And that's another thing that's kind of cool though, is like you'll be able to help carry his legacy on too in a lot of ways, That's pretty awesome. You talked about working at Harley Racing School. Did you get to interact with him at all while you were there or anything like that?
Yeah, so we did like a 5-day camp in 2016. And I remember we did tryout matches like the last day to potentially be booked on his show that weekend. Mm-hmm. And so I had one match that was okay. And then another guy got injured in like the first 20 seconds of their match. And so I don't know if you've seen the name pop up, but Jackson Stone. He was there. Yes. So Jackson came up to me. He was like, hey, man, I need to wrestle somebody. He was like, do you want to wrestle again? I was like, absolutely. So we went in there, we wrestled, and still to this day, this is one of the coolest things that's ever happened. Was we got out of the ring, and Harley pointed at us. He said, "Hey kids, come here." We're like, "Oh no, we did something." So we came up. He was like, "Hey kids, hell of a match." We were like, "Whoa, dude!"
Damn.
Like, okay.
Damn.
And then we got to work on the show that weekend. So yeah, Harley was awesome. Just that whole environment. He brought in guys from New Japan. He brought in Shane Helms, at the time was scouting for Impact. Um, Dave Taylor was scouting for WWE. So we had like a full blown pro wrestling experience that week. And actually, the following Monday was whenever I had to don the Americos mask and get thrown around by Braun Strowman. So it was a full week for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy filled week.
Yeah.
That's great, dude. Yeah, and you talk about working with New Japan Dojo and stuff. Talk about incorporating like kind of the Japanese style into your repertoire and stuff like that. Has that been an adjustment, or has that been pretty rewarding? How's it all been for you?
Yeah, it was an adjustment at first, man, because over time I knew that New Japan was the style that I wanted to adopt.
Mm-hmm.
So when they opened the LA dojo, and I went, I didn't realize like I had to throw out about 8 years of experience that I thought that I knew out the door when I had to relearn how to roll, how to run the ropes, how to do very basic things. But over time, because I think I have like 10 lanyards in my living room from all the camps I've attended with Shibata-san.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I was out there so much where the guys were like, look, just don't pay for the camp. Just come stay with us, hang out with Shibata, and we'll just let you do the camp.
Wow.
And so I've just found a way to kind of keep the foundation that I laid in Texas, but kind of build a tower on top of that was based on the Japanese style. And I could tell, like, even my parents who still go to a lot of these matches, they're like, look, we can tell a difference. Like, you are a lot more intense, you're a lot more physical, but there's a difference about you, but it's a good difference.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want. And I mean, it led me to last December. I debuted for them in Anaheim, and now I'm a part of New Japan Strong. So I guess they see something in me.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Something that I wanted to touch upon too was I thought the 50 caliber nickname was a cool thing. Where'd you come up with all that?
So I wanted to think of a persona that was just something different, because you have, I've been called the King of Texas, but you have all these royalty gimmicks and all this other stuff. So I was like, my actual middle name that I go by is Barrett. And I was like, that's the name of a high caliber sniper rifle. I was like, and I got friends in the military, so I can pay homage to them and kind of use this intensity with the nickname that kind of applies to my name already and just go by 50 caliber. And it's kind of just stuck.
Yeah.
And in a way, it got me out of the whole Americos thing, because I'm not going to say that wasn't a fun time, but the Americos thing wasn't fully me. I couldn't fully invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I found 50 caliber, I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm going to run with this and let this evolve over time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a rock solid name, man. Let me see here. Yeah, kind of branching off of that, your wrestling philosophy in a way, like Cody Rhodes just said in his media conference call, he was talking about AEW being more sports centric, and then he kind of talked about himself being more sports centric, and then there's so many other different flavors that comes on the AEW product. And wrestling in general has that too. Like, and over the course of time, you being a WCW kid like me and stuff like that, right, we kind of all know that shit. So, how do you kind of view wrestling in regards to the grand scope of thing? And do certain things work for you? Do you want to? Is it the big storytelling aspect of things, or are there more so like, or are you kind of open to whatever, even if it's kind of like hard to suspend disbelief, so to speak?
Yeah, I feel like it is kind of based on where I'm at as far as like what the fans are going to want to see.
Mm-hmm.
How much they might think that they know behind the scenes, stuff like that. But my overall philosophy is I realized not too long ago that when I plan stuff out, I don't like to call spots per se. I like to work toward moments. And my whole thing is like, if I can think about something and do it and I can feel it, then I know they're going to feel something.
Mhm.
So, my whole game plan is I want to take you out of your everyday life and take you on this emotional roller coaster where you're going to feel something. Because, I mean, we know that the Avengers, like that didn't happen,
Yeah.
but it's really cool to watch. You're going to feel something. You felt whenever Captain America picked up the hammer, like that was like, spine tingling. So, if we can make them feel something like that, that's what sets us apart from, like, say, MMA.
Mhm.
You go there to watch the guys beat the hell out of each other, but you come to us to feel something. And I feel like that's kind of my philosophy is I want to make you feel something at the end of the day.
And ultimately, like that's what, wrestling is all about, is getting that engagement.
That emotion, yeah.
Yeah, and getting that emotion and making that fan feel the connection with you or feeling that hatred towards you, whatever it may be.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, I always think this is a very important aspect, and I really think it's cool. I think I talked about Hammerstone about this too. I think maybe it was Hammer. I can't remember, but outside influences of wrestling that you've incorporated into your, I don't want to say your persona, but who you are as a person. What has been big outside of wrestling influences for you as a person, and then you kind of bring it and incorporate that in the ring for yourself?
Oh man, that's a great question. No one's ever asked me that, so that's a first. I don't know. I try to be relatable to a point of not being so much larger than life, but I want people to realize that I'm also a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't say it's really necessarily one certain thing from everyday life, but it's kind of the overall aspect. Like I want people to believe what I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not like Superman. I'm not, I don't have this kryptonite. There's a lot that I'm going to be vulnerable to. I don't have superpower, super strength. I'm an everyday person like you. I just do this really awesome thing and I happen to be decent at it.
Yeah.
So, I believe that if I can make them feel that, if I can get them to relate to what I'm feeling, then I've done my job. So I guess just to answer your question, man, because I've dedicated so much to this, I mean, if I lost this, I don't know where I would go, probably like into bodybuilding or something, but outside, I'd just say real life just applies directly into it, man.
Yeah, just like living every day. And I think what you mentioned too earlier, being on the road, I think that I'm sure that has a huge influence on,
Absolutely. I mean, before COVID hit, I was on the road or on a plane more than I was even in my place.
Yeah.
As long as the road is your home when you're doing this for a living.
Yeah, and you know what? I just spoke with Tom Lawler about that too, and how hard that aspect is just the travel aspect of it is the toughest part. Did you find that to be the toughest part for you too?
In a way, yes. And in a way, I'm very blessed as well because a lot of times, again, like my family loves this stuff and they're like, hey, we'll drive if you want to get rest. Or I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm on board, you know?
Yeah, right.
So, yeah. And I think outside of just the traveling, I think a lot of just the politics that not a lot of people see, behind the scenes, just there's politics with everything, but with pro wrestling, it's abundant. And so it's something that I think over time you have to kind of you realize who the snakes are, you realize who you can trust, and the trust factor is very limited in this business because I mean it's very limited, man. So I think that might be the other biggest issue with pro wrestling is the trust factor and its limitations.
Yeah, no, you know what? And that's with, like you said too, I'm sure with a lot of stuff, but pro wrestling, like, heck, the whole thing was built off a carnival ground, so
You're right.
it's a big aspect. Let me see here. Was there anything else? How about just some favorite matches overall that you've worked? Is there ones that really stand out to you?
Oh man. So off the top of my head, the one that I always talk about first is in 2014, I believe, 2013 or 14. There's footage somewhere of a little bald-headed Barrett Brown, 18 years old, wrestling Cowboy Bob Orton in Fort Smith, Arkansas.
What?
Dude, like I learned so much in 10 minutes because I remember talking to him in the back, and I was like, dude, I'm wrestling Bob Orton tonight, and I was just out of respect. I was like, what would you like to do, sir? And the only thing we talked about, he said, let's just not get hurt, kid. And that's all we said. And we went out there and he grabbed a wrist lock and the crowd chanted, "This is awesome." I was like, well, that's it.
Yeah, I got it.
But I think someone else that I learned a lot from was ACH. He was a guy when I wrestled him in Austin in like 2014 or 15. He's the guy that really showed me an example in real time of how to gauge emotion from a crowd with little bitty intricate things. You know, he's the guy that really instilled in me, you know, you don't have to kill yourself to make people love you. You know what I mean? You could have this really flippy guy that people love to see his moves, but if he breaks his leg and comes back a year later, can't do the moves, they're going to care about him. They're going to care about the move he can't do anymore.
Right.
So you got to make them care about you. So he really taught me that. But overall, man, like guys like James Beard in Texas who books like SWE Fury, James Beard has always been great to me. Tim Storm is another guy that helped me get a break for TV out in Arkansas. And this is where I'm like, I've wrestled really cool people, but I can't remember almost any of them.
And that's a tough thing, putting you on the spot.
Yeah, right. But lately, I would say everyone, the entire locker room at New Japan Strong, very helpful, very professional, and just an overall, you know, they're you can feel the love for the sport in that locker room, and they want to help each other. They want to make it better, and that's that's the environment that I want to be around.
Yeah.
So that's helped my mindset immensely.
All across the board too, a positive work environment's really,
absolutely,
and like loving the people that you work with is important.
Exactly, very important.
Yep. Okay, one thing that you think you need to work on as a wrestler, what would be one big aspect that you think?
I would say finding a way to evolve the character even more. There are certain times where I feel like I plateau, and when I plateau, I kind of get in my head. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
So I think finding an easier way to evolve the character and just overall getting out of my head about these little intricate things. You know, I'm a very mental person. I'm very much bigger picture. So yeah, I just beat myself up about the littlest stuff, and I'd say that's like my biggest detriment.
You know what? No, yeah, I think that's a big positive actually, because you keep up at it, and you like I'm in my head all the time too with shit, whether it's like doing this stuff or whatever it be, life stuff. But like if you keep that axe kind of grinding and be like, oh my god, I don't like how I did that, and obviously it can be a detriment, but I think you can make it the most of it because it keeps you driven, and that's a big aspect. Definitely.
I'll be honest, man. I was nervous before this too, because I mean I know it kept getting put off. I was like, man, I want to get it done because, dude, I was like, I hit up my cousin because before I even got in this business, WrestleZone was like the place we go for all the dirt sheets.
Oh, really?
I was like, dude, I'm on WrestleZone like next week. He's like, what? I was like, yeah, dude, crazy, right? So it's really cool. Like this is just, it's like me and him talking. You know, it's just conversation. So
yeah, no, and that's the thing too. Is that's funny you say that too, because I started here like 2 years ago at this point now. But like, dude, like back in like '99 and stuff like that, I was on WrestleZone like as a kid. Just like, I was like, I never fathomed I'd be like writing or doing this shit at all. So it's an adjustment. But you know, that's what's kind of cool about it all, and just being able to mix and see all the different people involved in the business, whether it's from a writing aspect or from a ring aspect or from a promotion aspect. I think it's a wild universe, brother, as you know.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, I don't think I could mentally deal with running a show, booking a show. Just all the politics I see backstage. I'd rather do my job, do it well, get paid, and go home healthy. You know, I could not deal with this stuff, man.
Right. All you got to worry about is punching in and punching out kind of deal.
That's it, man.
Yep. All right. So funny. This is how I've been ending things. And it's funny too because the first person I did it with was Hammerstone. You had to pick 3 workout songs. Now it can be current that you've been doing, or all time that you'd be like, all right, if I had to just pick 3 songs that I had to constantly work out to, what 3 songs are you going to choose? I'm making a playlist that I'm going to put on WrestleZone at some point.
Oh, man. Now you're going to make me dig through my phone. Because That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a good one. Let's see. So one I've been stuck on lately is the cover of X Gonna Give It to You, but it's by Fear of Water. Yeah, it's a banger, man. I like it. I'll tell you what, I've been jamming out to Blake Christian's theme song, the Bomb.com V2.0 by Sleeping with Sirens.
Okay.
That's a banger. And then I'll go with Bow Down by I Prevail, because that was when I won a King of Texas tournament last year. That song played at the end whenever there was like confetti and stuff falling around me when I won like the title, and I was like, man, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So I keep that feeling when I hear that song. So I'd say those three.
Yeah.
Those are good vibes, yeah.
I gotta listen to them. I expect the X Gonna Give It to You. I'm fascinated by that. Damn. So cool, man. Anything you want to plug?
So I guess just say let's follow me on Twitter at TCO_BarrettB. My Instagram is Barrett Brown TC1. You can find me on Facebook and all my social media, as well as actually my page for my merchandise, my training facility, and I'm also a certified personal trainer. So that page can all be found on my website. Go to www.barrettbrownpro.com, and I've got all the social media there as well.
Awesome. Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Awesome to speak with you. It's been cool touching base. Yeah, man. All right, guys, this is Dominic DeAngelo. You can follow me on Twitter at Dominic DeAngelo, and you can follow WrestleZone on Twitter at WrestleZone.com. Go to WrestleZone.com for all your wrestling news needs, and yeah, we'll chat with you guys soon. Thanks, Barrett.
Thank you, man. It was a pleasure.
All right.